Hey, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my amazing co host, Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you?
I'm really excited about today. So I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm great. Every time I get to have this conversation with you, I'm great. But I'm looking at you, and I get to see these new glasses you've got. I love them. They just make me happy just to see them. So I'm sure our audience feels the same.
Yeah, that's my quest in life to look for funky glasses that I could, change them up and, have a different look. What could I say?
Well, we've talked about it offline, right? But they become the perfect conversation starter for, people that see you and get to know you. And, they don't know what they're going to get the next time they see you because you'll have a different pair on, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
So I've been reading a lot of Vex King. He's a New York Times best-selling author, actually, and he has a fabulous Twitter feed with really edgy stuff. Edgy for me because he challenges how we view ourselves.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was reading was the gist of it. It's not word for word, so please excuse me if I screw it up a little bit. It's actually incredible what you'd be able to do, see, experience, and feel if you'd be willing to let go of the past, the outcome, the need to know.
Oh, that's a lot to unpack. I mean,
You know what? It really resonated because that encapsulates 80% of the work I do with clients.
yeah, yeah. So, give me some direction there in terms of, the challenge. Do you find that most in those three boxes or lanes that he sort of outlines, do you find that it's one lane that's a little bit more prevalent in the work that you do with the clients that you serve? Is it things that are holding them from the past, or is it the outcomes, or what do you generally find?
I don't know if I could highlight one over the other. I'm going to start with the need to know.
Okay. Oh,
So,
that.
okay, the need to know, to be in the know, to have every bit of information, and you don't do anything until you know everything there is to know.
Yeah.
It's a roadblock. It's a huge roadblock, and you might not never know. Like I say to people, live in the questions. Sometimes you need to live in the questions, and what are the questions you need to live in? That is, where we go. You might not ever have an answer. Does that determine how you live your life right now? Usually it stops them and they look at, okay, how do I view that? That's one thing. The next is the outcome. When you do something forcing an outcome, you miss everything along the way, the entire journey, all of the learning in the
Hmm.
unknown, which is really something. And so if you let go of the need to force an outcome, you might end up with a much better outcome. That's not to say don't set goals, don't have intentions, all of that. No. What that says is that sometimes if you veer off course, you're going to discover something that you never knew existed. So, what if you did that? And then the first point was to let go of the past. The past trips people up.
Yeah.
I didn't succeed in this in the past, or in the past, I was really successful. How do I recapture that? You live in the present, and the present is what creates the future. Learn from the past, use it as like a foundational piece that you build on, or do something totally different because it just wasn't successful. You don't live in the past. It's like driving a car looking through a rear view mirror. You're going to crash and burn.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't be looking backwards. You need to be looking ahead
Yeah.
by what you choose right now. And if you gave yourself the chance to let go of the need of any of these things, then you're freeing yourself up to see, feel, experience that which you would never give yourself a chance to do because you're so focused on getting from point A to B.
So, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, and I'll pretend that I'm one of your clients. But, I have to hold on to one of those three because at the end of the day, it's like that. I need to know the information if I'm going to make progress. I need to know the outcome I'm trying to get to because, I mean, what's the point otherwise? And of course, I have all my self doubt unpacked, and ready to throw on the table because of all the reasons I'm not going to be successful because, I was a failure at this or I struggled, with that before. So, I think that, first of all, I think this is incredibly powerful because I really think it shakes the dynamic up significantly because I think even myself, I can find myself falling into one or three of those, buckets all at one time. So, I mean, I'm making up that I'm a client, but maybe I will be a full, maybe this will turn out to be a Steve therapy session. I don't know. But, at the end of the day, I do feel like there is some challenge there to, because I think we often are sort of tailored or cultured to fall into one of those, if not all of them at some juncture.
Okay, so the past informs but shouldn't dictate.
Yes, I hear that.
Yes.
I
So
hear
look at
you.
it from
I
that
don't feel
perspective.
you all the time. No, just kidding. I, I get where that point is very true. It's absolutely accurate. The problem is that most of us never get beyond that. We don't think about that. And you're absolutely right. It helps inform, it should help you inform what you do now and forward, not necessarily be the chain around your neck holding you back.
That's right. And people who have a very difficult time in change initiatives have a difficult time because they won't let go of the past. In the olden days, in the good old days, we used to, in my last organization, those framings lose people because you need to look at what is relevant right now and operate from that perspective. The outcome, we can only perceive what the outcome is. If we set a goal that we want to achieve X, that is the outcome as we perceive it to be. So you could say, okay, I want to be a best selling author. So I'm going to focus all my energy on crafting a book that will be a best selling book. You have no control over that. However, if you write from the heart something that is so profoundly impactful for you that you want to share with the world, chances are it just might be a best selling book.
Well, let me ask you there. Let me stop you for a second because as I'm thinking about this, the reframe in my mind is the outcome would, hey, it would be great if I'm a best-selling author and, become world famous because of this great book, right? But the reality is that if you set that, the likelihood that it happens may or may not happen, right? But you are setting yourself up for disappointment if it doesn't, and frustration, and that chops at your confidence in a big way as well. But what if instead of the outcome, I love the fact that he frames it in this way, and that don't focus on the outcome, but more or less focus on the journey, right? You'd said, hey, look, side trips, side discoveries, and all these different opportunities. But if you say it isn't about the destination, it's about the trip we're going to take in order to get wherever we go, and wherever we go is sort of left up in the air, and that journey is what I really need to learn to recognize and appreciate in the moment. Because to your point, if you're so fixated on just that outcome, yes, the goal's important. However, it's the trip that it's going to, that we're going to experience along the way that is going to be the thing that we remember the most. And so that journey piece being a potential replacement for that mindset, I think could be great. And it also, sort of takes a little bit of the pressure off. I'm not going to be a best-selling author if I don't necessarily have to put that on paper and think I'm not successful unless I am a best-selling author. But wow, if I write this book and I put it out into the world, it makes a difference and it changes people's lives and they think differently. Think of all the great conversations I'm going to have, all the great interactions that it's going to lead me to, and all these great doors of opportunity that might open. Doors of which are mystery to me right now, but that's part of the journey. That's the surprise and delight and the excitement. And now if you're putting your energies towards that, and if you happen to become a best-selling author and you become rich and famous, hey, that's a bonus, right? But at the end of the day, you're setting a more realistic perspective for yourself, one that's a lot more enjoyable, I think.
And let's go a little bit deeper with that one, because when you try to force an outcome or let go of having that specific perfect outcome, you're going to make different choices. So I'm going to use a book as an example again. So and so had a best selling book. So therefore, I'm going to go to their publisher, their editor,
Yeah.
their marketing person to do exactly
Yeah.
for me what they did for them. The
Yep.
point is, though, the content of my book is so dramatically different than theirs. Maybe they are not the best publisher for the book. I had that experience with, my publisher for journals insisted on being my publisher for my book, and I ended up firing him because he was not the right publisher for my book. He was trying to change the flavor of the book to such
Hmm.
an extent it wasn't my book anymore. And that was the integrity of that was even more important to me. So looking at if forcing an outcome or having control of an outcome, so you're modeling it after something else that was successful is not necessarily going to be successful for you.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, letting go of the past. Because when we were successful in the past and we want to bring that with us into the future, well, I hate to tell people, but life is not the same as it was even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you have to approach life in a way that's relevant to now. And it keeps accelerating everything from technology to what's happening with COVID pandemic. It's not over for a long shot, for sure. What are we doing with it? How are we
Yeah.
dancing with it? All of that kind of thing is going to totally change how we live our lives and the choices we make in our lives. So it's what happened in the past. Yes, might have been successful. It's like me traveling all over the world to guest lecture and teach was an extraordinary experience for me. Am I going to keep doing it to countries that are so riddled with COVID cases? Absolutely not. So I will look for a different way to disseminate that information
Yep.
and figure that out, not using the past, but looking at what is the future going to hold and how could people benefit from me sharing my wisdom.
Which
So,
yeah, to stop you there just for a second though, but at the end of the day, because of that, because you got clear about what you would or wouldn't do, now it's forced you or pushed you in a direction to help innovate and recreate. And I've seen it personally over the last year, the rebirth of the excitement in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that was probably an outcome you didn't expect, pre-COVID, right? So,
yeah,
it breathes new life into some old approaches and old ideas that, take it completely in a different direction. So again, part of that journey piece.
exactly right. And take bits and pieces of what worked in the past, morph them, change them, make
Yeah.
them new and exciting and energizing for you. It's that control piece. I think that's what this whole message is about.
Yeah.
Having to have control and bring the past to the present to control an outcome so that you know that you're on the right path. Sometimes the wrong path is the right path.
Yep. Yep.
Keep that in mind. And the need to know everything to such an extent that you're paralyzed without knowing. Sometimes just dive into the deep end of whatever you're doing and you're going to learn fast. So,
Yeah, I read something this past week. I can't remember the name of the author, but I've been crushing a whole bunch of different books over the last few weeks, and it was a book by the. I can look on my phone really quick. It's a book called Jump, and it was the book is by Kim Perrell. She's
okay.
a technology and telecom executive that was very successful. But it's all about jump prep, right? Jumping out of a plane, etc. But she has this one section of the book where she talks about you only need between 40 and 70% of your information in order to make a decision to move forward. People spend too much time thinking I have to be at 100% or at 90%, no less, before I will make the decision or I'll take that first step or take that leap, that jump. And I thought that was pretty brilliant, right? A lot of what you think that you have to have in your control before you're actually ready to step up to the plate to take a swing at the ball, you don't really need it. And so I think that that one to me becomes a little bit easier, although still struggle within that bucket that, I need to know that this is going to, these investments are going to pay off. These are, that we're going to make the right decisions and that's going to result in X amount of, captured market share or, conversion of customers or whatever. And, at the end of the day, the need to know the information in order to do whatever it needs to be done holds so many people back, which is, actually going back to our last episode, right? It would be, that's why a lot of people are stuck at the start line while, someone else is making the lap and, that start line's becoming their finish line, so I think that there's a lot of merit in that idea.
For sure. And one of the things I loved about teaching is how much I learned from my students and for the people who participated in my workshops and everything else. Because I would have a core curriculum because I developed a methodology. However, how I populated it with case studies and everything else and insights from the people who actually took the course really continued to morph it. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love to do is what I call grad basic. So we would go back to the basics from a perspective of those who have graduated and revisit them to see what did they bring to the table, how did they morph them, and how do I integrate that into my program?
Yeah.
And it's dancing in real time with change at an educational level. Definitely, there's nothing stodgy about it, and it's all current. So I always tell people, whether you're doing personal brand work or marketing work, make
I
it
love that.
relevant. Don't
Yeah.
use quotes from like 35 years ago. Use quotes from people who are currently game changers
Yep.
and introduce the world to some of them who don't even know who some of these people are through their really edgy words.
I love that.
It's yeah, very cool.
No, that's very, very cool. Well, listen, this is, we could talk about this. I sense we could go back even deeper on all of this, and we might in a future episode, but we definitely like to keep these conversations a bit short. We'd like to hear from you as our audience and see what you thought about this. Did this change your perspective? Donna sort of changed mine. This was really, really useful and valuable for me in a lot of ways. And I love exploring this particular topic, but we'd love to hear what your perception is, what your thoughts are, and share some comments with us. So Donna, how can folks do that and get involved and tell us, not only what they thought of this episode, but other episode or topics that they might like us to tackle in a future show?
So join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, or you could get us through our website, ripplecentral.com is Steve, the king of the ripplers, and I'm at donnacarlin.com, Carlin with a K. The other thing I'm going to start posting on our Facebook group is people like Vex King, who I really think has a lot of really good messaging to share, some of the other Twitter feeds and social media platforms of people who I really think warrant further discussion.
Yep.
Let us know what you want us to discuss,
Yeah.
what these talks did for you, some of your personal successes and experiences. We would love to hear.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we definitely appreciate you tuning in to another episode of Inquiring Minds. We'll be back again next week with another episode. But until then, Donna, take care. Have a great day.
You too. May it be a great one.
All right. Thank you so much. See ya.